need to adapt quickly because your industry, business, trends, it changes. And if you go too heavy in one camp, you won't get credibility, because if you were in the camp of AI is going to replace everyone, well, it didn't. And if you were too heavy in the other camp, AI is not going to last, you were wrong.
Yep.
But if you sit in the middle like you and Anthony did, and you wrote an incredible book, and you say, look, this is how it's actually going to level out, well, then people are going to see you're always going to have two sides that are going to get excitable on either, but they don't last. You're absolutely right. They come and go. No one really listens to them. And I think it's the people that kind of stay in the middle, look at the bigger picture and adapt quickly are the ones that survive. And so I'm always studying. I'm looking now at how is AI impacting social selling? How are people using it to create content? And those that are using it to just replace and do everything for you, they're not going to last. And those that are resisting it are going to struggle as well. You've got to find the ways to use these tools with everything else.
Welcome back to another episode of the Sales Gravy Podcast. In the studio with me today is the great Daniel Disney, the god of LinkedIn. And we're going to be exploring Daniel's background. There's a lot of people who want to talk about his greatness, his books, all of the followers he has on LinkedIn, the thousands of clicks and likes he gets on his posts. But I really want to explore the real Daniel Disney, the Daniel Disney, who is the sweet-talking Brit who usually wears a red shirt, where he came from, where he's been, and what brought him to this place where he's become one of the greatest influencers on social selling on the planet. Before we get started, though, Daniel is part of our core providers on Sales Gravy University. Sales Gravy University is the most powerful sales training engine on earth, featuring more than 40 of the world's top thought leaders and sales trainers, just like Daniel. So if you're a team or an individual, you want to give it a try. Now, if you've never taken a course on Sales Gravy University before, you can take your very first one for free by using the code FREECOURSE. Just go to learn.salesgravy.com. That's learn.salesgravy.com. Daniel, welcome to the Sales Gravy Podcast.
Jeb, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited for this chat.
Well, in the introduction, I mean that. Like, everybody wants to talk about how great you are and all the things that you're doing. I really want to figure out who you were growing up. So let's start with growing up. I don't know where you were in England, someplace, because I assume because of the British accent. But tell me a little bit about your childhood. What was it like coming up as Daniel Disney?
Yeah, and probably the first person to ever actually want to delve into my past. So I like this. This is refreshing. In reality, my childhood was relatively simple. Again, from the UK, right down the south, the way I describe it, draw a line down the middle of the UK, follow it to the bottom. That's kind of where I've been born, bred, and lived my entire life. And nothing really in my childhood has any connections to what I do now or even to sales. Neither of my parents worked in sales. And I was actually a very introverted, shy kid. At one point, I think around 13 years old, my mum pushed me into drama classes to try and bring me out of my shell. And I was very reluctant, very resistant. The tipping point was actually my first job. And at 16 years old, got a job at a DIY store on the checkouts, on the tills. And after 2 weeks, the sales manager of the kitchen department came up and said, there's a personality I see in you. Do you want to give sales a try? And that was where I really found myself. I found a voice. I found a passion. I loved selling. I loved helping people. And it's been a journey since then.
It's hard to imagine you as an introvert. So as a kid, before drama class, before going into a DIY store and working at the tills, you Brits always bring these wonderful words. Like when you say introvert, like, can you explain like what was that like as a kid to be an introvert?
I mean, it's just quiet. Just never one who needed to talk or wanted to draw attention to myself. I mean, when I was a kid, jobs I wanted to do was to be a doctor or a pilot or a teacher. It was all just very traditional things. And yeah, family get-togethers, I would just sit and watch and observe. And I've always found a fascination in watching people. Still to this day, I'm a people watcher. If I'm having a coffee or at a restaurant, I love watching people go by and trying to understand how the world works. And I guess as a child, you are just processing that information.
Interesting. So it sounds like you're still an introvert today.
Very much so. And the funny thing is, and you've seen me on stage, Jeb, like on stage, I am 100% extrovert. Like I have this energy that just comes out of nowhere. Off stage, I am very much happy being the quiet person. And I've had companies that I've spoke at and they'll say, Dan, the person we saw last night is not the person we just saw on stage. And that is just who I am. But I think I like the opportunity of being on stage and trying to help and give value, which is, I think, why sales appealed to me.
How were you in school? Like, were you a good student or a medium student? What was it like?
I was a good student in the sense that, like, I like to follow rules. I like to just head down, do the work. Like, I wasn't getting involved in any of the ruckus or anything going on. It was just get into class, do as best I can. Uh, the things I found most enjoyable at school were more creative stuff. So art was a favorite subject of mine, and then business when I was able to study business at school, and psychology. Those were the three subjects that really pulled me in, which, funnily enough, does align to everything I do: business and psychology for sales, and creative for content, which eventually, further down the line, became a thing.
I'm just curious. How about math?
Math, I was okay at, but it wasn't a huge thing for me.
No, I was terrible at math. Awful. Like, I mean, horrible. Like, in my my freshman year of college, you had to, maybe it was my sophomore year of college. I think it was sophomore, but you had to pass calculus in business school in order to advance. And the professor called me in one day and said, "I'm going to give you a D so you can get out of here, but don't ever take any more math classes. Just get out. You're not meant to do this." So,
Yeah.
so I went to marketing and creative things versus into economics and finance. So you get this job, and at 16 years old, working in a DIY store, it'd be like a Home Depot or a Lowe's, like, okay,
just like that.
And so when your manager saw something in you, you're just working at cash at the checkout.
Mhm.
Like, where did they move you to give you a chance to sell?
So they had this kitchen department where you would design kitchens for people, and these were big ticket items. These were tens of thousands of, pounds, dollars. So again, as a 16-year-old who was still at college at the time, like, this was a part-time job for me. I did.
You're at college at 16?
Yeah, that's how the system works in the UK.
Oh.
So it's college 16 to 18, university 18
Oh,
onwards.
okay.
So
We're not there because like at 16 years old here, if you go to college, you're a freaking genius.
No, slightly different model. But I was part-time working, and I was given like a day's training on a bit of sales, a bit of how to design a kitchen. And again, I'm a 16-year-old. I don't know much about designing kitchens or even selling. But what clicked, and I had a very good sales manager. She was this incredible lady that just saw sales as a solution thing. Like, it was all about helping and serving and asking questions and trying to build the right sort of solution, which was a great first influence into sales. And I think the helping people thing and then the money were big motivators. At 16 years old, I'm young, and because it all sort of clicked into place, I got quite good at it quickly. And again, when you're young, it just becomes like a snowball going down a hill. You just want to do more. And I ended up working 30 to 32 hours a week whilst in full-time education. I just went all in.
What I'm curious about is you're 16 years old. People are coming in to redesign kitchens. I've redesigned a couple of kitchens. We're talking about pretty big money to do that. These are homeowners. They're typically people who are probably college educated. They're affluent in order to afford to do this. You're designing a kitchen for them at 16. You don't even own a house. How did you get any credibility with them for them to pay attention to your recommendations?
I think, and it's a really good question, and it was definitely a challenge at the start. And I think where I found a skill set that applied to it was being a personable person who was very much focused on them. I wasn't trying to tell them what to do. I wasn't trying to preach. It was ask as many questions as I could, really understand their problems. And then because I'd been trained essentially on how to do this design process, I was able to find good solutions for them that they wouldn't have been able to think about. And it was just about being a human being. I wasn't trying to sell. I wasn't trying to manipulate. It was just like, look, I want to try and deliver the best for you. I listened to them. It was a collaboration, but it was a skill that as I became a leader quite young and was leading much older salespeople, that skill was able to apply to working with people of all ages and experiences where they may have worked longer than I had. They may be older than I was, but I was able to bring them together for a common purpose, which is kind of what sales is.
I run into this often. I don't know if you do, but I run into young salespeople, so early 20s, who are struggling with this. They're struggling with, how can I be credible when I'm selling to people who are older than me? How am I credible when I'm selling to people who know more than me? And in fact, earlier today, I was doing a training with a group, and that was one of the questions that one of the reps asked is, how do I gain this credibility? From my answer to the rep was similar to what you said, but it was like, you got to ask questions and you got to recognize that that confidence that you're looking for is going to come from within you, not from without you. Like, there's nothing I can give you that's going to make you feel confident. when you run into people based on this experience that you just explained who say the same thing to you, if that happens, how do you address that with them? How do you help them find that confidence or learn the things that you learned really early on? I mean, it's impressive to learn that at 16 years old.
It is, and I'm lucky and grateful that I was able to do that. And I think it was the guidance I had from good leadership at the time. But I think I agree with you completely. It's something that comes from within. And I find it's a mindset shift of I'm here to sell something or I'm here to help someone. When you are told to sell something and you've got targets and pressures, then it becomes stressful because then you think you need to be convincing and persuasive, and it's a pressure. But when you're trying to help people, it's a very different mindset. You're not trying to be the expert or anything. You're trying to understand them, because the more you understand them, then the more confident you become to find the solution because you're able to help them. What I like, there's a link to kind of LinkedIn and social selling, because I get a lot of people new in sales that are like, how am I supposed to build a personal brand on LinkedIn when I'm completely new? And the beauty of it is, if you're not the expert, you can become the bridge of that. I might not know all the answers, certainly didn't when I was younger, but I would find it, and I would find it quickly, and I would work harder than anyone else to find any solution. So if you don't have all the answers, it doesn't matter. That was never anything that stressed me out. But I don't have the answer. I'm going to find it. I'm going to find it quickly, and that's going to build my credibility.
Yeah, I think that's one of the pieces of advice that I give people is you are worried about knowing what to say, or you're worrying about knowing the answers. That person doesn't really care if you know the answers. They do care whether you can tell them, I can go find it, or you can find the resources. If they already had the answers, they wouldn't be spending time with you.
Exactly.
So it's the ability to say and confidently say, look, I don't know, but I'll go find out.
Yep.
I think that matters. I also think that introverts, as a rule, are a little bit better at this than extroverts.
It's true.
Because the extrovert is getting so much of their energy from talking and expressing and having the gift of gab, where the introvert is much more an observer of people. And what I've found is that introverts are very good at listening to a person, asking discovery questions, getting them to tell the story, and then they tell that person's story back to them in the context of how they can help them. And even at 16 years old, when you do that, the person's like, wow, this person totally gets me. They understand me, and I'm willing to trust them.
It makes that level playing field, which I think creates opportunities for anyone of any age, of any experience, of any background. And that's the purity of sales. That's why I loved sales. It wasn't about being an extrovert. It wasn't about being something you weren't. It was just about going out, being you, and helping people. And that's why I absolutely love working in sales and always have done.
Okay, so you got lucky at 16 and got a great leader. You've said this several times. I'm with you. I got super lucky. I got Mary Gardner really early on in my career. Not at 16, but in my very early 20s.
Yeah.
She changed everything for me. She was a wonderful leader, kicked me in my rear end, helped me along. How important is, when you're looking at getting your first sales job or your second sales job or any really sales job, how important is that you choose a leader that's going to help you?
So important. And that wasn't a lesson I learned early. Whilst I was lucky in that first role, it wasn't something I was conscious about. I didn't realize I was lucky. I didn't have anything to compare it to. So I assumed every sales leader was like that. And so probably several jobs after then, it took me a while to realize that actually not every sales manager is that good. And I ran into some, pretty bad sales managers, and they could be really damaging. I was lucky I had that core foundation, or otherwise it could have had a very negative impact. But it is so important. I advise anyone working in sales, if you're looking for a sales job, you are equally interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you, and you are looking for a good leader. And don't forget, just like salespeople, sales managers can be just as good at telling you what you want to hear in the interview. So as a salesperson, you want to be prepared to ask questions that are gonna, I say trip them up, but get them to be honest, and so you see the real side of them. And I guess the extra bit is talk to people in the team.
And there's some real data around earning potential working for a poor sales manager versus working for a good sales manager. The numbers are striking, that salespeople who work for great sales managers earn so much more and have much more career opportunity. I worked for a fantastic sales manager after Mary. I actually got into another great situation. And it's funny because almost every single person that was on that team with me during that period of time all grew into roles like CEOs and moved up in their career, because he was such a good leader and laid such a great foundation. I do think it's important that I love what you said, you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. and get out in the field with their people. Go sit side by side. Go ask for a day in the life, maybe 2 days in the life, so you can see what it's really like. Because get with the right leader, you'll go places. Get with the wrong leader, and they'll sink you.
Well, that's what I started to do further down the line. I would always phone or find salespeople in the company if I was interviewing for it, and I'd ask them honest feedback. The beauty of it is, as LinkedIn started to come in, I started to use LinkedIn, and you can go and connect and message people and say, look, I'm looking for a job in your company. What are some of your honest thoughts and feedbacks? And salespeople will be honest.
I love that. Salespeople will be honest. sometimes a little bit too much honest. So at 16 years old, you're in college. And I do, because in the United States it's a little different, but you're in college and you are in this DIY job and you're doing great, got a great leader, making some money, helping people. What happens next?
So I finished college, and at that point I had the choice of university. I had a place to study international business at university that was offered, or I go into full-time work. And I was so in love with sales that I decided to go full career and got a full-time job. Same type of industry, just a different company that was able to offer a full-time job. And I look back, and not that I have regrets. University could have been a great experience. I don't know where that path might have led me, but I'm obviously grateful that I made this choice. And so I went into a full-time sales job. All my friends went to university. I was working Monday to Friday, and I started my proper sales career.
Okay, so you skip university. You're probably crushing your friends in terms of income.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, like, I'm 23 years old, and I did go to university, but I'd gotten out, and I'd worked in sales all the way through college. So as we call it college here, but I was working through all the way through, and so I got more and more experience in those roles. And when I got out of school and went into a higher level sales role, I was making 3-4 times what my friends were making in a sales role. I mean, at the time, if I go back to when I was 23, 24 years old, I mean, I had a couple of years in commission that I think if you put inflation on it, I probably was making almost $1 million.
Wow.
And I mean, big time money.
Yeah.
But I figured out, like, in sales, I could hustle, and like it was on me, and I could make money. So you go into full-time sales. Are you still in DIY, or have you moved on to something else?
So I stayed in that industry for about 3 or 4 years after going full time. And then I got my first corporate job and went into the B2B space. And that was where things really got exciting. And it's a big transition from sort of retail B2C, jumping into then B2B, big learning curve, going from sort of person to person selling to cold calling and emailing and then presentations. It was a very big transition.
How did you convince them to hire you? Because that's a tough, if you think about, you see this all the time when you want to move to a different industry or you want to jump to a different product, that there's so many companies out there. Well, you don't have any experience in our industry. And you probably even see that as a trainer. Like, what experience do you have in this particular industry? It happens all the time. How did you convince them to take a flyer on you?
Now, this isn't an ego thing, but I sold myself very well. And I just remember preparing so much. And 90% of the people I know that interview just went to that interview with their CV. I had literally printed tons of research. I'd literally written a list of 10 reasons why they should hire me. I'd looked into the product. I'd looked into customers. It evolved eventually to become folders of research I would do for jobs. And I was always very comfortable in the interview experience. So I think that helped. And I had some leadership experience coming into it. So there was a bit of, I'd worked hard up until that point. So I think it leaned the scales enough to get me the opportunity, which was lucky.
I remember when I made that leap. I leaped from retail into B2B. I remember sitting down with my lead, the guy that hired me eventually, and I'd been through multiple interviews. I'd explored the company, and then I had to travel 4 hours for this interview. And we're sitting at the table, the conference room, and his name was Bill Carsons, and Bill's awesome, but he's like, we'll get back to you. And I'm like, okay, I just drove 4 freaking hours and we'll get back to you. So I just looked him in the eye and said, no. I said, I'm not doing that. I said, you need to hire me on your team. I want to work here. I said, you tell me right now what I need to do to convince you to get this job, because I'm not leaving until it happens. And he hired me right on the spot. I think he was just looking to see, is there any fire here?
Imagine if every salesperson had that. I mean, that's what you want in a salesperson, someone who's going to stand up for themselves and in a passionate way, obviously. But I love that.
Very good. So, okay, now I know you got a family now,
Mhm.
and so I'm just curious about the timeline. So getting married, starting to have a family. When does all this happen in conjunction with you making this move into B2B? Because a lot of times, and I don't know if this happened to you, but a lot of times those two things are kind of happening at the same time because you're moving from retail where you make this much money to B2B where you make this much money.
Yeah. It was a very similar time frame. So I think I just got into B2B when I met my now wife, and she had my eldest. He was 5 years old when I met my wife.
Okay.
So we went. It was a big transition from being on my own in this sort of B2C space, and then now I'm dad. And it wasn't long before my youngest, was born as well. So it was a very intense time period, starting with B2B, trying to grow my career, working hard, also trying to become dad for the first time, was a very intense period. And I would say probably 4 to 5 years of growing a career, getting settled in this before then it really started to take that next level.
I was given a keynote 3 weeks ago in Orlando, and a young man walked up to me, probably about the same age you were then, working in a role that is crazy lucrative. These kids can make so much money.
Yeah.
And he asked me this question. Like he says, I've got a baby on the way. I just got married. And he asked me this question, like I'm the wrong person to ask about, how do you balance it all?
Yeah.
And I, I just looked at him and said, you just got to figure out probably more than anything, how to manage your time at work well,
Yeah.
so that you're compressing the sales work into the day and you're not ending up taking it home with you.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you got to hit your number and you'll take it home with you. I said, also, you kind of understand what it is that you want. Like you're going to have, there's going to be some trade-off. This is not a perfect world, and you're not going to have work-life balance. If you're looking for that, you're going to be disappointed. But maybe I didn't give him the right advice. So if you're listening, and you said you listened to my podcast, and I can't remember the young rep's name, but it was a sincere question. At my age, and he's at his age, I don't even remember who I was at that point in my life.
Yeah.
How did you do that? What was your balance in that moment? Because I'm sure there's tons of people who are going through exactly the same thing.
My advice is going to be very similar to yours, Jeb, to be honest. And I definitely made mistakes at that point because it is very, very hard. I mean, I spent more time away from my kids and my wife than I probably should have. I tried to keep as much balance, and I agree completely. That time period taught me to be super efficient with my time. Like I own my time now. Every single minute I care about. I don't waste time on meetings that don't need to be had. I don't waste my customers' time. I'm super optimized, and that was a lesson I think I learned during that time period. I agree with your advice. You want to try and find balance where you can, but there are going to be times where you do just have to put your head down. There has to be sacrifice. Like there's no easy life where you can have everything, you can make lots of money and not have to work a lot and have work like that, life balance. It just doesn't happen. I guess what you want to try and do is mitigate that. If it means a few years of a little bit of sacrifice, then, and you can make it work, worth it long term, it might be worth it.
Yeah, I think you're always sacrificing what you want now for what you want most. You have to,
exactly.
And there's always that trade-off and that balance, and everyone's got to find that.
Mm-hmm.
You got to find your own way.
Yeah.
I look back at that period of time. I worked 7 days a week, but I would do my proposals on the weekends because I didn't want to use my selling time to do proposals. And like you, I used every moment of my day wisely. That if there was a gap, I was on the phone calling someone, talking to somebody. But I also sold more than anybody else around me. And I think that what's true about top salespeople everywhere then and now is that top salespeople are masters of the clock. They're super stingy with their time.
Yeah.
They don't go to meetings. They don't have FOMO because marketing's having some meeting someplace you need to be there. Unless the CEO says you have to be there and they're taking names, they're not going. If it's recorded, they'll listen to it in their car. They'll listen to it on the way to work, but they're using every moment purely for selling because that's what they get paid to do.
Yeah. And I think we're in a more fortunate position than ever before with remote working, virtual working. It is so much easier to be flexible. I went through a period of time where I was able to pick my kids up from school every day. And I took that little chunk of time out. I was at work early. I would work late. I would do weekends as well. But there were little things I was able to do just to make sure I was in some way present and active in their life and made sure I prioritized time as well. I think virtual working has made that a little bit easier. But I agree. The best salespeople that I've ever worked with, and I have the same mentality, you care about your time and you're not scared to say no.
Absolutely. And I did the same thing. I was able to pick my son, Jeb Blount Jr., who y'all listen to on the podcast, but I picked him up from school when he was in elementary school pretty much every day.
Yeah.
But I started super early.
Yep.
And then I would pick him up and take an hour or so, and then I'd be back at it again, and I'd
Yeah.
work super late. So he would tell you that I didn't spend enough time with him, but every kid's going to say that. But I got to do that every day, which I thought was pretty cool, because when he got home from school, I was like, "What did you do? How'd you do things a day?" And I remember that.
That's priceless.
Yeah. So okay, so you're in this B2B job. How are you doing? And how does that progress into what comes next in your life?
Yeah. So I was doing well. I luckily built up all these skills, great foundation for selling, which applied perfectly to B2B. I had to learn a whole new skill set, making cold calls, all that wonderful thing. But I was so driven, so competitive, and a very hard work. Always have been a massive hard worker. So I picked things up quickly. So cold calling, I would make hundreds of calls a day. I would make sure I was the number one cold caller in the company. I was so driven. So everything moved pretty quickly. And then I transitioned into leadership quite naturally, because I love people. I love getting the best out of people. I loved sales. It all aligned really, really nicely. And yeah, I was able to climb the corporate ladder, got to experience different industries working in sales, got to grow teams, got to build training programs. And I think it was all those ingredients that then obviously helped me with the next stage.
Tell me about your transition into leadership. So how long were you in sales, and then what was your first leadership role?
So I started getting leadership roles around 17, 18 when I was still in B2C. I would just take on responsibilities. Like, I was so hungry. As soon as I learned something, it was like, what else can I do? What else can I take on? What other responsibility? What more can I learn? And I've had that in every single job. Leadership going into B2B sales was a bit different, because you've got, again, salespeople of all different ages and experiences, big targets, big quotas. That took some getting used to, but I was very comfortable managing different people, getting to know them, finding their strengths, making them know I was on their side, and essentially working for them. That's what leadership has always been to me. It's I'm there to get the best out of you, not bossing you around or trying to tell you what to do. It's how can we work together to get the best result?
So I want to pull something out of what you just said.
Mm.
I'm going to look at the camera for a second for the people who are watching this on video. If you're trying to get ahead in your career, if you're young and you want to get promoted, Daniel just gave you the secret, like the formula for getting ahead, getting promoted. You volunteer, you take on everything. You say, "What's next, boss? What else can I do? What else can I learn?" You're not working for the man, you are working for yourself. There's nothing that will get you ahead faster. That was the marker for my career was, what else can I do? How can I do it? If there was something I could volunteer for, I would do that. If I had to work an extra 2 hours a day to get it done, I would do that. But that made all the difference in the world. And that's huge in terms of getting people to pay attention to you and see you. And what I heard a great CEO said is, if you're young, you want people in the organization to know your name.
Definitely. And it applies the same for sales. You want to do the same for your customers. You want to go above and beyond. One of the pivotal moments I remember was after taking on all these responsibilities. I wasn't quite a full-time leader yet, but I started creating a newsletter. And this was just an email newsletter just for my colleagues. And it was just, here are some updates. Here's a little motivational quote. And again, these are all things that kind of tie into what I do now. But it was all those little things that I know helped me get ahead. And again, I've taken that application to working in sales. I want to show my customers that I'm going to do more for you than any other salesperson.
I did the same thing. I had my first like B2B sales management role. I moved from Greenville, South Carolina to Memphis, Tennessee, and took over this team. And I gave them a name. We were the Mid-South Sharks, so we got our own name, and I started, like, I did this newsletter, and the newsletter was printed because there wasn't really anything like this. This is before digital was easy, and a little quote, like ranking everybody, article that I would find someplace, and I sent it out every month, and it was like, I loved it because it was my own tribe. Like that's what I loved about sales leadership. And I say to people today, I said it then, my favorite job ever was being a pure frontline sales manager. Never had anything that was more fun than that.
Yeah, I agree. And it's nice being able to look after your team and help them and inspire them and motivate them. And I think that's what has led me to kind of applying that to LinkedIn. That was probably the biggest advantage I had.
Okay, so give me the gap in the year. So you started in B2B out of college. You get promoted at some point to a leader. Then you're moving to some different industries. And what was the gap in years between your start in B2B to when you decided that you were going to take everything you learned and go out on your own and build your own business?
Roughly about 8 years from starting B2B to that point. And then in the middle of that point is where LinkedIn became a thing. So I'm a B2B sales leader. I've got a team of about 30 reps, and LinkedIn is in its early stages. Not many people are utilizing it, but it's growing, and it's, people are hearing about it. And that was when I came across it, started using it. And again, it was a very different LinkedIn back then. And so then there was this period of time of me using it for about 3 years to sell and to lead my team to sell. And that was when my personal brand started to find its voice. And then there was another few years of building that in the background before I then had an opportunity to go full time with it.
Do you remember who your first LinkedIn connection? I mean, do you know who it is?
Oh, I don't. I wish. I wonder if there's a way to find out. I know it was a customer of mine because I remember the email coming through to my work email inbox, and it was like, ex-customer wants you to join LinkedIn.
Oh, you can find out. I found out last night, right? Because I was shocked. My very first LinkedIn connection, Lori Richardson.
No,
I'm dead serious.
That's amazing.
Yep.
How funny.
Long time ago, like I think 2013, something like that.
Yeah.
My very first connection, Lori Richardson. But
That's
I
amazing.
just downloaded all my
I was gonna say
my connections, and I could see when I connected with them, and I did a sort, and I'm like, there it is, first one.
There you go. I'm gonna do that tonight.
Isn't that wild? So about 8 years. Now, you said you worked in different industries. Can you tell me a little bit about the different industries you worked in?
Yeah, so a mixture of tech, software. I spent most of my time in the IT industry selling a mixture of sort of training programs, apprenticeships, learning systems for B2B companies, Microsoft, Cisco, that kind of stuff. That kind of formed the bulk of it. I did some time in telecommunications, in TV. It was a real variety. But IT was where I really settled and spent the bulk of it.
Is that where you liked the most?
It was, yeah, it was. I understood it quite well. I enjoyed the topic. I enjoyed the customer base. And I think once you start to work with a particular customer for a while, you grow with it.
Now I'm gonna put you on the spot just for a minute. I'm interested in your best sell story, like the one that when you're having a couple of drinks with friends, or you're hanging out with a bunch of salespeople and everybody's talking about, I closed this, I did that, I did this. Like, what's the one that you pull out of your back pocket that tells everybody that you're just a badass?
I've got the perfect story for you, and then afterwards I'm going to share with you my worst sales story because it always makes people laugh at my expense. Best sales story I had was actually what formulated my first book, which was the $1 Million LinkedIn Message. And this was, again, early stages of me using LinkedIn. And it was a LinkedIn message to a big company. We were a small sort of training provider at the time. And this was one of the biggest brands, $1 billion brands. And we were going up against the biggest competitors, which we really weren't at that same table. But that single message got me the opportunity to pitch, got me in the conversation. And I worked my nuts off to win that sale, and we won it. It was the biggest sale the company had. It was the first time we were ever really at that top table in the industry. And yeah, it was a $1 million sale. It was the biggest sale of my career at that time. And that for me was a real pivotal moment for A, LinkedIn, but B, my career and, sort of success.
What closed it?
I closed it.
But what did it? Like, what was
it was a mixture of relationship building. I worked hard to build solid rapport. I mean, I worked with that company for 10 plus years after that initial. I put everything into regular calls, emails, meetings, lunches. Like, I went full in on building a relationship, and then through that building a proposal and a solution that competed.
So if I nail this, you saw that there was something there. You felt it. You knew that you had a good opportunity, and then you went all in and did everything right along the process. So you ran the process fully.
The products were pretty much the same. Like, even though we were a small provider, everyone generally sells pretty similar products. So it really does boil down to the other things, and that was what I invested in.
Very good. All right, the worst one.
Okay. So the worst one was like my first sales job, selling kitchens and bathrooms. We started selling bedrooms, and we had 3 beds on display. Now I'm 17, 18 years old. Heavy night out the night before, maybe 1 hour's sleep, come into work the next day in my suit, ready to work, sit on the bed and think, I'm just going to put my head down. About 2 hours later, a customer woke me up. Now, everyone asks, did you sell them a bed? And I can't remember. I don't think I did, but that was probably the low point where I was like, okay, yeah, I need to take this a bit more seriously. But yeah, being woken up by a customer, That's a low point.
I love it. I love it. Very good. Okay. So you are in tech, selling training, which makes sense where you are now.
Mhm.
You get to a point where you've been using LinkedIn. Help me understand the catalyst, like what was happening in your world where you decided to make the leap.
Mhm.
And I'm going to ask, first of all, I want to know what happened, and then walk me through. Did you just go like, I'm leaving the corporate world and I'm going on my own, or did you keep your day job and work on it at night?
So good question. And it was a very intense period of time. So I'd been building my personal brand for about a year and a half. The daily sales I'd started whilst I was in full-time work. So that was kind of just built on the side. And that was a passion product. I didn't build it to be a business. I was just creating content. I enjoyed creating content for salespeople. And kind of because I was just giving value, the audience grew quite quickly. So for the first year, 0 to 100,000 followers, no business, no plan, wasn't going to monetize it in my head. But it got to that point and I was like, okay, maybe there is something here. So year 2 was, let's test the water. This is back when influencer marketing was not a thing in the B2B world. There was no easy selling. It was all picking up as I go, small deals here and there. That audience kept growing. I was making some money, not a lot, certainly not enough to quit my full-time job. But the scales were starting to tip and I was getting interest in delivering LinkedIn training. And it got to July of 2017, and I thought, right, I want to do this. Like, I really enjoy this. I'm enjoying this more than the full-time day job. So if I want to make this work, I had 2 kids, a fiance at the time. I can't just quit. I need to build momentum. I need to have at least 12 months security to try and give this a good go. If it doesn't work, I'll go back into full-time jobs. So July to December, or to end of November, I worked every hour under the sun and weekends to build enough business to cover the following year so that I could hand my notice in December and then start the January. And that was probably the most intense period of time. Like, I went all in. That was the hardest I've ever worked. And it got to the end of November. I had built just enough. My wife finally was like, okay, you can do this now. And yeah, handed in my notice 1st of December and then 1st of January, 2018. Here we go.
Now, when you were building, did your employer come to you at any point and go, what are you doing? Do you need to make a choice? Or like, how did your employer treat this, or did they even know what you were doing?
They did. And it's a really good question because I see a lot of people building side hustles and things like that. I always prioritized my day job and I was always transparent with my employer. So they always, and it was on LinkedIn, so there was no way to hide with it. They could see everything I was doing, but I worked to make sure I was overachieving in my day job so that I earned the right to then contribute any extra time to the other stuff. And that was a good choice, but a priority to me. And that's what I advise anyone who's building a side hustle. Your bread and butter, your day job is your priority until it's not.
Okay. So 2017, you make the cut, right? So when I did that, I was absolutely, utterly terrified. There are 3 years of my life that I barely remember because I was working 22 hours a day, 21 hours a day. I would get 4 hours of sleep, 3 hours of sleep, and I would do it again. And I did it every single day. And I didn't have like when I started this company, I didn't have the technology that a lot of people have today. Like the stuff we have today makes life so much easier, but I didn't have it. And I would go to bed at night and I would, if I got any sleep, I would wake up sometimes just like I couldn't breathe because I would be in complete and utter terror that I was going to fail. Now for me, maybe different than you, my fear of failing was really more, I didn't want to have to crawl back and say, I didn't make it. Like when I left the corporate world, like I wanted to leave and win. And I know that fear was completely irrational, but it drove me. Like I was afraid of failing more than anything else. But I just remember those years of, I just could never breathe because I was living on the edge of making it. I mean, there was one point, like this would have been like way before you started your business, but I think it was in August of like 2009. I spent the last money that I had in the bank on a plane ticket to Chicago to close a deal with a Fortune 200 company that if I didn't close, that was all I had left. Like I was, that was it. And I closed that deal Similar to the story with Bill Carson's, I was like, you got to buy from me. If you don't buy, I can't go home. So, but I just remember that. And I'm wondering what your experience was like when you made that cut. I mean, maybe you different, maybe you're just calm and cool and it all worked out, but I was a wreck.
So I was definitely very scared, but in a very different way. I never felt scared of going back. I always felt like, actually, I don't mind if I'm working at a company for someone else or if I'm working. That wasn't the biggest thing for me. I've always been very self-driven and I compete with myself. So for me, it was just, I want to be as successful as possible. I always knew, I believed in myself that there was potential there and I just wanted to bring that to life. So I'm just competing with myself, trying to do better. But the first 2.5 years, I don't remember a lot of it. It was work at all times, even on vacations. I'm working, like it's non-stop. A lot of sacrifices, a lot of those moments where is this month's revenue coming in? Customers letting you down. One of the big customers I had leaned on for that first year, did 3 months work, didn't pay. Took me 8 months to get the money. And at a point where you are not self-sufficient yet, it's so stressful.
I wonder if we all have to learn that lesson. I only had one that stiffed me.
They're the same. Just
one. And it never happened again. But I learned that lesson the hard way.
Yeah. It's the worst. And it's bad that companies do that to people. And it was a big company. It wasn't even like it was a startup in themselves. But those first few years were stressful. But then you build, and I love it every year after then it's fun. It's still stressful in different ways, but you have a system and you feel like, okay, it's moving. Now I can really look at how we push it forward. But those, first few years are scary.
How do you feel like you've evolved as a leader, human business person, thought leader since 2017 to now? So, number of years, what's changed with you?
I would say a complete transformation. And I don't often stop and reflect. I don't often stop and see where I am. I'm so focused on what's next. But I look back to 2017 Dan, who was, handing in his notice, and I look at who I am now, and I'm so much more comfortable and confident in where I am, who I am, what my business is, what I want my business to do, where I want it to go. Whereas for a lot of that time, you are figuring out, and I say making it up as you go, especially in this sort of industry, whether it's social selling training or even influencer marketing. Kind of both have been very new things in the space. There weren't people that I could look to say, what should I charge or how should I package this together? I had to figure it out and test. And so it's nice now that it's in a system and it's now becoming quite a widespread thing. And so, I feel in a much more calmer, controlled place than where I was, which I'm grateful for.
What was the point where you knew it was going to be okay? Like I go back to 3 years of, I'm living on the edge. I don't know if we're going to make it. I mean, it's me cold calling every single day, trying to drum up business, building a company. But there was a point where I relaxed and was like, okay, we're sustainable. Like everything's going to be okay. I don't go to bed at night thinking, what's going to happen to my company or, all of these wonderful people that are here in the studio with us. I worry about what's over the hill. I worry about, like, especially right now with AI, I worry about what may be out there that'll kill us. But I'm not like worried about whether today's going to be a good day or bad. Tomorrow's going to be a good day. But there was a point where, I don't know, it had to be like 2011, 2012 for me. So I started this company in 2007, for like January 1st, 2007. That it just got to a place where I was like, it's going to run. It's sustainable. What was that for you?
So funnily enough, year 3 for me was 2020 when COVID hit. And so I was still in the uncertain stage of the business anyway. And then COVID hit. And for the first 3 weeks, that was probably the scariest because everything kind of disappeared. Every closed deal I had was either pausing or canceling. And that was one of those moments of, I'm not sure where this is going to go. After that, things just blew up. And it was, I guess, right time, right place for what I did in terms of everyone was now coming on LinkedIn, everyone was virtual. So it kind of created new opportunities. And I pivoted very quickly from what was entirely in-person training and speaking. I literally adapted straight away, created home studio setup and went all in virtual. And I think the speed of moving really helped. But then by the end of 2020, the whole thing started to come together. And once we got out of that, then it was just integrating in person back to what was now a fully virtual business. And that kind of created, essentially the final model that my business needed. So it was a scary time, but it created what I needed.
Yeah. Oh, 2020 is the best thing that ever happened to us. I mean, this guy over here that's sitting in front of the camera is a genius to put all this together, but we already had this ready to go when the pandemic hit. So we never missed a beat. Like we didn't lose a customer. We didn't lose a contract. Everything moved, and we quadrupled the size of our business during that period of time. The hardest part for us was really last year was the pivot for us when everything swung back so hard to being in person that we didn't adjust our business model from virtual to in person fast enough. And the cost of travel and inflation and everything caught up with us. And so we had a little bit of time last year where it was like, okay, we got to make some adjustments or we're going to go out of business because we're not making any money.
Yep.
And we made that adjustment really quickly. And what was funny is in 2021, we actually sat down and had this conversation about when the pendulum swings back, what's going to happen. But for some reason or another, we just didn't see it coming. Which those are the type of things in business you want to be thinking about. So one of the things that I've always found fascinating about you is when you think about the whole social selling movement, which I've not been a big fan of. I don't like the word social selling. I'm just like the phrase itself makes me, I just don't like it. I know it's a moniker for something, but if you think about that whole movement, and if I'm wrong about this, just tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah.
There was this massive like move of all of these people that came into that. Like this is going to be easy, and the easy play there was everything in sales is dead except for this. Like, and that's one of the reasons why guys like me who are probably selling is everything I know and do, and I'm a pragmatist. Like I'll use anything. Like for me. Like it's all about the probability it's going to work. But when people start playing zero sum, I get a little bit bothered for it because there's a lot of young people that it messes up really badly. So it was like this, all the sheep came into this space and we flash forward, 7-8 years later, really would take the last 10 years to sort of, it started in about 2015. Almost everybody's gone. Like almost nobody made it. You're one of the last ones standing. There's a couple other people who are still there. There's still some people who come and go. Like I'll see a new person come in and all of a sudden like they act like this is brand new and they're, and they're doing the same old trope, like everything's dead except for this. They don't last very long. But the thing that strikes me about you is I've watched you go through your career, and the thing that I think I've told you this before, but the thing that garnered so much respect was that you've been a pragmatist too. I mean, you have subtly shifted the way that you talk to salespeople over time, based on realism, based on where you are, where they are, how the world has changed. And I think as a business person, that's really smart. So you didn't pick a lane and go like I'm an ideologue. This is the only thing that works. You just shifted, and it's been kind of cool to watch. And I'm wondering like where did you learn that mindset? And am I right? Like, did that happen, or did I miss something along the way?
No, you are right. And I guess I've always looked at it as sort of being more on the fence than being heavily opinionated. And that's something that's a personal thing as well as a professional. I don't get massively emotionally attached to single things. I like to look at the bigger picture in every aspect of work life, personal life, etc. So I've always looked at social selling, and I think it helped coming from a core traditional B2B sales background. I spent my years making cold calls, physically knocking doors, doing every aspect of sales. So I know that cold calling isn't dead. I played with the debate a bit because it was interesting, and it
was easy. Like it's easy today. Like
you baited people in.
Right.
But the problem was, whilst there were all these social sellers that were like cold calling's dead, there were a lot of traditional salespeople that were like, no, social selling's a fad. So there was equal negativity on both parts. And that was where I found a sweet spot in the middle where I could say, look, social selling isn't a fad. It's a real thing. LinkedIn is a powerful sales tool, which traditional salespeople, there are still a handful that just don't believe in it. And with the social sellers, I was there saying, LinkedIn's not the only thing. You can't not make calls, not in B2B sales. You need to be picking up the phone and sending emails. So you need this sort of sweet spot in the middle. And I think that's helped me earn credibility in this industry and have longevity because
Did you do that on purpose? Like, did you watch how things evolved? Like, because we've run into this twice now, at least in my space, when social media really came on board and we went to the social selling stage. That was one where we had this entire group of people that says everything's dead except for this. we went through this briefly. It moves so much faster with AI over the last 18 months where everything's dead. We're replacing all the salespeople. Anthony and I wrote the AI Edge to answer that process or, that thought process. And it didn't kill everything. And we didn't think it was, but it happened way faster. Are you like an observer of what's happening in the world and shifting what you're saying, what you're producing to that?
Yeah. And that's something I try and teach when it comes to being sort of long standing on LinkedIn. You need to adapt quickly because your industry, business, trends, it changes. And if you go too heavy in one camp, you won't get credibility, because if you were in the camp of AI is going to replace everyone, well, it didn't. And if you were too heavy in the other camp, AI is not going to last, you were wrong.
Yeah.
But if you sit in the middle like you and Anthony did, and you wrote an incredible book, and you say, look, this is how it's actually going to level out, well, then people are going to see you're always going to have two sides that are going to get excitable on either, but they don't last. You're absolutely right. They come and go. No one really listens to them. And I think it's the people that kind of stay in the middle, look at the bigger picture and adapt quickly are the ones that survive. And so I'm always studying. I'm looking now at how is AI impacting social selling? How are people using it to create content? And those that are using it to just replace and do everything for you, they're not going to last. And those that are resisting it are going to struggle as well. You've got to find the ways to use these tools with everything else.
It's really interesting. Last night I was playing with AI and LinkedIn and working on multi-threading in an account. And I didn't actually believe that AI could do this because I thought that it would get blocked.
Yeah.
And maybe it was because I was logged in. I don't know. But I created a prompt, and it was a really simple prompt. It was, please analyze this LinkedIn company page and give me the names and the titles of everyone on that page who has these particular titles. And I just did comma separated titles in a table format with a link to their profile page.
Yep.
2 seconds later, I got a list of all the people there. And then, you plug that into like a Zoom info, and all of a sudden you got a list of all the players really quickly. And I thought, that is just freaking insane to be able to do that as a salesperson. That's where I think what we've evolved to at this point, and where AI has been so powerful, is I could have done that without AI. I could have gone through that process.
It would have taken you a long time.
It would have taken me a while, but to get that instantly and then be able to go to my favorite non-LinkedIn tool is Zoom Info.
Same.
And being able to plug that in, I'm like, dude, like I just got a prospecting list in about 10 seconds. And I know that cold calling works because I don't know, you know Brooke Ann, my executive assistant.
Yeah.
She made 10 cold calls yesterday. She's my executive assistant. She got a 30% pickup rate on those cold calls.
I love that.
So it's like, now if I can build those lists, like better list, better outcome, and then we start thinking about LinkedIn in terms of what I use, like slow prospecting versus fast prospecting. Fast prospecting, interrupt, engage, convert, right? Slow prospecting is building that relationship over time so that I'm anticipating an open buying window. I start to improve the probability that I'm going to be talking to the right person who's going to have the right level of familiarity with me. So I've built some credibility and it's easier to get in the door. And I think that's where AI has taken us and technology has taken us. We just have to be smart so that we're not getting bogged down in the things that aren't actually creating any value for us. And that goes back to when you were young and you were starting a family and you were in B2B, you had to use every minute wisely.
Yep.
And think about how much more you could have sold then if you had tools that could point you in the right direction and get you in front of the right person.
Do you know what excites me the most, Jeb, right now is that AI is doing all those things. AI agents will do them before you even think about it. The fact that we can have agents soon doing those things before you even have to ask, we don't even have to come up with the prompts. Once it's seen you do that, it will do it for you. It will go and find accounts, and it will give that to you. That's this huge next generation of AI and sales that I'm super excited about because it's going to optimize me. Oh God, I wish I had that back when I was starting, early. So incredible. But the key is to embrace it, and change is scary. And that's why there are lots of salespeople and companies that are still resisting AI because it's scary. Learning something new is scary. Learning a new skill and a new technology. I think, and it was the same with COVID. Loads of people and businesses and salespeople put their head in the sand. I'm just going to wait until it's gone. Whereas those that adapted quickly and if you're sleeping on AI right now, it's a big risk. You need to be testing it. It's going to be painful. It's going to be uncomfortable. but that's how you keep ahead.
Yeah, it's actually super easy. You think about the agents, right? So when we think about an agent doing that for me, the upfront work that I have to do is to define, the ICP or your ideal profile of a customer, and you have to define when buying windows open. And AI can help you with that analysis, but the human creativity and the human part is, okay, is this what we want? Then you can unleash the agents to go find that information for you. But essentially, the thing we hide from is not being a human. That's the problem. And you posted something the other day ago that I love it. I took a clip of it, but it's so true. I swear to God, it happens in my own company.
Yeah.
We get an inbound lead. And my first question is, did you call them? And somebody says, no, I emailed them. I go, well, wait a minute. Did you call them? No, I connected with them on LinkedIn. Did you call them? I sent them a direct message. Did you freaking pick up the phone and call them, right? Yep. Because an AI agent can do all those other things for me. Did you have a conversation with them? And I saw you post that, and I'm like, okay, that's what the message that Anthony and I had in the AI Edge is that AI should give you more time to spend with human beings doing the things that AI can't do, which is this.
Yep.
Right? I mean, unless they create robot, Jeb and Dan. I mean, other than that, the one thing that's real in life right now is synchronous real-time communication.
Yep. And that's why the phone is super powerful. And that's why I preach for audio messages and video messages on LinkedIn, because you show that they can hear your voice, they can see your eye contact, your body language. It's so powerful. But a lot of salespeople, again, are resisting, they're scared. And that's why the right training, the right coaching, the right support with the right mentality, you can win.
Yeah, the audio messages are powerful. And they're so super powerful because when someone gets the LinkedIn direct message and there's an audio message in there, they can't actually see it.
Yep.
Right? They can't read it.
Yep.
And they're curious, so they click on it and they listen to it. And I'm that way, but nobody sends them.
No, I don't know about you, Jeb. Most months, maybe 99%, 100% of messages are just written.
Yeah.
And they're so easy.
Yep.
They're scary at first. Of course they're scary at first. Your first cold call is scary. Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's nothing.
Okay, so I got a couple of quick questions about LinkedIn. And I'm just curious because I'm not an expert in LinkedIn. I'm dealing with a bot problem on LinkedIn. Okay. The bot problem is that there are profiles after I post something that'll come in and comment on it. And I've gotten pretty good at knowing when a comment is a bot, just by the way it comments. But some of them, I'm not sure, right? And I don't want to not respond to someone. I don't leave them hanging. And one of the things that'll drive up a post on LinkedIn is comments and responses to comments. Like you get one moving and it'll go viral. But always on the second time, like if I comment on a robot's post, it will always comment back, and it'll congratulate me or say something nice, which is exactly what ChatGPT does. My GPTs tell me I'm the greatest in the entire world. Trust me. They're awesome. And then it'll ask another stupid question. And immediately it's a robot. And all I do is just hashtag robot on it, or I'll at LinkedIn hashtag robot. It's happening more and more. There was a place where it was happening a lot, and LinkedIn, I think they tamped it down. What are they doing about that? Because the one thing that I believe will destroy the network is if agents are posting all my stuff for me, agents are running all my comments for me. I mean, pretty soon the robots are going to be talking to the robots. Where are the people going to be? How is LinkedIn addressing that problem? Because that will kill LinkedIn.
It will. And so I'm luckily on sort of an inside group that we get to speak to their product team, and we've been shouting about this for months. It's not easy for them. I empathize with LinkedIn. It is not an easy thing because, as you say, some of these comments, you're not sure. Some of them are really obvious. And some of them are like, oh, is that human? Is it not? They are trying their hardest to do it. One of the things you can do is report anyone you are convinced is definitely a bot. You can report it. That's the best way you and I can help LinkedIn, because the more they flag it up, then we're showing them what we're seeing. The other thing is, obviously, you can delete it. You can block those people so that they don't, because whilst the engagement can help, LinkedIn's also trying to tackle it. So if they see it, they might think that you're doing it in essence. So you want to try to tread that line carefully. And then I guess the third part is trying to drive as much organic, real engagement to drown it out in essence. It's a bit of a manual task. And I think LinkedIn will get on top of it. It's just a very tricky period. And it's the same with AI content, trying to showcase what is and isn't. One of the things I believe is that people should have to disclose if it's just like a brand partnership, you should have to disclose if that content was created from AI.
Absolutely. I think the AI content's a little bit easier because the marketplace will decide that, right?
Absolutely.
And it already is. And it's deciding it, for example, with LinkedIn or with prospecting email. So prospecting email is essentially at this moment dead as a doorknob. We're not getting through, and that's because AI took over.
Yeah.
And now the marketplace is voting, and so you're getting less AI, more people. I've had conversations with several top executives of companies recently who were just in the middle of a conversation. We were talking about email, and they go, "But here's the thing: I got an email the other day, and it was crap. Like it was the worst email, but it was written by a human being, so I responded. Like so, suddenly the stuff that before we would have gone, oh my god, it's bad. We know a human wrote it, so at least someone cared enough."
Yeah.
And I think the same thing with AI content. I think AI generated content, the marketplace is going to take that out. But that's different than AI generated profiles that are faking being human beings. That to me is a massive killer on the platform. And I think that if you're an insider, the one thing they could do on reporting is when they pull up a report, you should be able to click a bot that says suspected bot. So, because I don't know if it's spam, because it's not really spam. They're not like self-promoting. They're just playing around and interacting. And I do see a place where you're going to have entire industries set up. I'm sure they're already there, where you set up a whole bunch of agents. You post something, and all the agents come in and they comment on it so that you can get visibility.
Well, it's just like what pods were, the sort of LinkedIn pods that were all artificial. You pop a link in, and all these people, real or not, interact. And you're right. Same with content though. The users are getting savvy to it as well, and so they'll know if all your engagements. Then you will lose credibility. I think and LinkedIn are definitely going to be doing things to try and make it easier to flag it. And what we've seen is LinkedIn are getting very good at stopping companies that are accessing their platform and data. They're banning big companies that are scraping data.
Apollo just got a banned, right?
It did, and which is huge because they're a big customer. So LinkedIn is definitely putting their foot down, and it will just take time.
And they got to do that in direct messaging too, because we're getting, we just get hammered with bot farms that are just dropping that in. And I was doing some research because I'm working on a book, and in the research, I was coming on to company websites who were saying, yep, LinkedIn bans it, but they're not stopping us, so we're going to keep doing it. And they were legitimately, you can sign up for them, give them your contacts, they'll go in and send direct messages, and they're like, we'll do it until. And I think that's like, that's super dangerous. If like with me, I've got, 15 years, more than that, like not 15 years, but I think 12 years of working on LinkedIn. To lose everything if you got banned, you're like, you get banned from the biggest business network in the entire world.
And for what? Trying to take a shortcut, trying to scale something like sales and social selling, quality over quantity. And I always preach, just slow down and do it authentically. None of these tools are going to get you there faster because they don't work. So you can use this tool that's going to spam all these messages. You're not going to get any conversions. You're not going to create any opportunities. Just be human, which is kind of the message for AI and everything in the future of sales.
It is like it's like the thing that makes us unique is what gives us differentiation in the future. You've written a couple of books. You've got the Ultimate LinkedIn Messaging Guide here, and you've got the Ultimate LinkedIn Guide. Your editor and publisher, mine, the same one. So, tell us about this book here, or both books, and why people should pick them up, and how these books. Like how you design these books for the reader.
I mean, my passion is to help salespeople use LinkedIn. As a salesperson, not a marketer, as a salesperson who understands B2B sales, I wrote these books to help B2B salespeople use LinkedIn. So the Ultimate LinkedIn Sales Guide takes you through the A to C. Your profile, growing your network, how do you find prospects and customers, build a personal brand, send good messages, create good content. So this was the A to Z guide. The Ultimate LinkedIn Messaging Guide then goes deeper into messaging, and this is the one that goes into written messages, audio voice notes, video messages, and in-mail messages. And again, this is all about actually starting conversations, and to help, there's 50 templates in there to get people started on better messaging, not copy and paste spammy stuff, but real conversations.
What drove you to write books?
Oh, that's a good point. I'd been creating content for probably 3-4 years at that point. Was loving helping people through LinkedIn. And I knew the next step of that journey from writing a blog and creating content was to put a book together. And I mean, I don't know how you found writing your first book. That's a crazy, scary experience. Like, again, there's not really a lot of support out there for you. I self-published my first book. But I loved the journey. I loved, it was just creating a different form of content. It was more the discipline, whereas a blog I can write in an hour. Writing a book is a lot and has to be structured. So that was a learning experience. But again, I loved creating something that had the goal purpose to help people, and then getting to see it help people is the ultimate win.
Yeah, I enjoy. I like writing more than like anything else. I have
The biggest sales author out there, Jeb. Like, you're a writing machine.
I love writing. I like it. I enjoy it, and I like the process of putting it together. It's I learn when I write, and I write books for me, not for other people. So I try to write books that I would want to read if I were in sales. But it's like giving birth, and it's a very difficult process.
It is. It is. But it's so nice at the end.
Yeah.
Like, you hate the journey. Like, there'll be nights you're writing and it's like, oh, this is so difficult. Oh, it's stressful and it's not fully together. But then when you see that final bit, you're proud.
It's true. I'm in the place with this new book, and I'll have 2 books come out this year. So, which is kind of nuts when you're doing 2 simultaneously. But I've had a couple of years where I've done 2. That the new book I'm in, it's rolling downhill. I get to a point where it all starts coming together enough that I can feel the foundation, and then it's like you're connecting all the sinews together. That I dig. That I'm having a good time with, and I'm working on this book in this new Edge sort of series of books that I'm working with co-authors on. So it's a fun process.
Yeah.
The what's next for you?
Good question. More books. Like you, I now have a rhythm with writing, and I do enjoy writing, as stressful as it can be. I love the outcome, and I do enjoy the journey. So I'm working on a few book ideas to choose one that I'll take for the next one. There's just so much I want to write about. So probably similar to you, it's like you start writing and then it's like, oh no, there's another idea for a book, and it's trying to prioritize. And for me, influencer marketing is a very big booming industry. So it's something I've been doing for a long time before it's ever been a thing, and now it's a thing. B2B influencer marketing on LinkedIn, companies are really opening up to the opportunity. So I'm really pushing and growing that side of the business, and that's really exciting. Working with companies to promote and create promotional content and get that right is a fun challenge.
It is a challenge. It's a huge challenge for integrity. You know, you've got to make sure that it's the right company, and then in my world, it's a balance, right? So it's always a trade-off. If I'm investing in influencer marketing for this company, what am I leaving on the table when it comes to pure training or consulting, which is typically a little bit more lucrative than the influencer marketing spot. So it's a fun, it's a fun audience to work with, but I certainly see that shift happening, and you're a good voice and a good face for that. You got the energy. I guess the final question I have for you before we take off is, when you look at LinkedIn, and when you are really you're the Elvis of LinkedIn, so you're the god, and you're insider without giving away things that make them mad at you. Where is the platform heading? And I'll give you a couple of things to think about as you answer the question. One of the things that I'm noticing is that more of their core features are getting locked up behind paywalls. So this new book that I'm writing with Bryn Tillman, who is a competitor of yours, but also a friend,
huge friend, and someone I admire,
is, we have to constantly say what we're showing you right now is free, but it might not be a year from now. So a lot of things are getting locked up behind paywalls, and I can't figure out where they are with company pages. Like I haven't quite figured out, are they going to go all in on company pages? Are they not going to company pages? Are they going to do the Facebook thing where you spend all this time building a page, and then unless you're buying advertising, nobody ever sees anything? It's such a weird platform. I'm just curious, like, what's the future in a nutshell from you?
You've kind of alluded to it very rightly, and it's something I've been talking about a lot this year, which is it is becoming a pay-to-play platform, which is the natural evolution of every social network. Facebook, if you were first on it, you would have benefited from the same organic reach. You would have been able to grow really easily, and then it flips the switch when it reaches a tipping point and it becomes a pay-to-play platform. Now you can't go onto Facebook from scratch and build a business without throwing a lot of money at it. LinkedIn, we're at I think personally, I believe there's maybe another 12 to 18 months where organic reach will be, which is still really good. It's a little bit rockier than it has been before, but you can still grow super fast organically without spending a penny. But for consistent results, money has to be spent now. And that is where LinkedIn will evolve to. It is a business. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, but if anyone's on the fence, now's the time to go big on LinkedIn whilst there is some organic reach, and then be ready to switch to pay to play, where ads are going to become a big thing. Subscriptions like Sales Navigator and premium features are going to be your only way to unlock potential.
Do you feel like, from an advertising standpoint, that LinkedIn is going to adjust their pricing structure? And what I mean by that is, if you're advertising on Meta or on Google, it's affordable. Like you can take a little bit of budget, and with the right strategy and reaching the right audience, you can generate a lot of leads. And I talk to business people all the time that say, we can't figure LinkedIn out. We just spend all our money on Meta. And I'm one of those people. Like, I've spent money on LinkedIn, and I just cannot unlock the code of advertising on LinkedIn to make it, to get the ROI. So I'm wondering, as they move into more of a pay to play, are they going to lower their cost per click, or cost per what do you call it, impression, or add additional mechanisms for advertising, so that you actually can create a steady stream of leads without spending your kid's college fund?
So I don't think they'll reduce the price by a lot, simply because it's a premium product. Because it's B2B, the value of a lead is a lot higher than it perhaps would be in Facebook and other platforms. I think they will build better systems. You can see now they're already testing, integrating AI and certain features to make creating ads a lot better, so that your outcome is better. I think there may be a small reduction, but it certainly won't be down to Facebook levels. But again, I think you're paying a premium price. If you're a B2B company, the value of potential lead is much greater than it might be on other platforms.
I'd see so many companies come and go. Like, they'll come and run advertising, and they give up. And I talk to these folks.
Really,
they're really nobody can figure it out. Like, nobody really. And it's like with Facebook and Google, for example, there are people out there that will teach you how to run it. Like, there are books written on it. You can read blogs, and they're generally right. Like, there's some stupid stuff out there, but nobody has the formula for LinkedIn. Like, you can read it all over, and it's like, I don't know if this is going to work or not.
But it's still young. I mean, LinkedIn is, in comparison to those, LinkedIn and ads is still relatively young. I do think it will get to a place where it's much more simple to do and leverage, and there will be a level of affordability with it from a B2B standpoint. But it is new, and so now's the time to test. Like with anything, don't sit and wait. Don't hide. Obviously, test cautiously. Don't throw money. But there are incredible thought leaders coming into the game that specialize on LinkedIn ads, that their business is built on managing those ad spends. Their insights are phenomenal, and I'm looking to learn a lot from them at the moment, whilst also testing and experimenting. And I'm seeing companies do the same, especially in influencer marketing. Companies are now, influencer paid boost posts is one of the best features. Companies are now boosting those posts because it's a more human. You're getting a much better ROI compared to boosting an advert or a pure, sales pitch in essence. If you've got an influencer promoting your product, put your money into that, you're going to get a much better ROI. And I think that's the sweet spot at the minute, and I think that will continue.
I think I know what Daniel's next book's going to be. I'm going to be the first person waiting in line, because I want to crack this code. Like, I love LinkedIn, and I want to be able to use it well, but I don't want to go broke in the process either. So very good. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Sales Gravy podcast. Before we go, you have been here in Thompson, Georgia at Sales Gravy Studios shooting training videos, which we're so honored to have you on the Sales Gravy University platform. Can you give us a quick preview of what you've been working on?
Yeah, so it's been an incredible week. And by the way, your studios, your staff are just phenomenal. And I know the quality of content that they filmed is going to be amazing. We've done 23 courses, 290 odd videos, and covering a wide range of LinkedIn social selling and sales courses. There is stuff around social selling in 15 minutes a day. There's how to go viral. There's my insights in sales and the best salespeople I've worked with and what those core traits are. Real variety of courses, but I went all out. I mean, I've put my everything into recording this week to create the best content. So I can't wait for it to go live, and I hope everyone's going to enjoy it.
Well, thank you so much. And folks, if you haven't taken a course on Sales Gravy University, you got to go check it out. We've got teams from all over the world who bring all of their salespeople in, from teams from 3 people to 2,000 people. that are on Sales Gravy University. We have folks who grab our courses, like Daniel's courses, and they drop them into their own LMS. So large companies who do that. We have individuals that just want to boost their sales skills and sell more. You got to check it out. It's the most powerful sales training engine on earth. And right now, if you've never taken a course before, you can check it out absolutely free. Pick any course you want. Just use the code FREECOURSE when you go to learn.salesgravy.com. That's learn.salesgravy.com. I'll see you next time on the Sales Gravy Podcast. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please make sure to click like and subscribe so you never miss a single video. And if you want more sales training content, go to learn.salesgravy.com.